are you all doing today? Thank you for being a part of today's focus group of building customer experience with Zoho CRM's Command Center. As the name suggests, today we'll look into Command Center from top to bottom, what it does, how it works, and how you can use it. I'm Sushmita from the Zoho community and I'll be walking you through the session today. With me are Sid, Priya, and Abhi, who will be acting as our panel today. Priya and Abhi are the product managers behind Command Center. They have been overlooking its development from day one, so do make the most of our panel today and feel free to ask them any related questions that pops up. We have a Q&A session towards the end of today's focus group, but you can ask questions as the session progresses using the chat interface. We've had to pre-record this webinar to avoid technical difficulties as much as possible. However, if we do face issues during the session, please be kind as to let us know in the chat box and we'll rectify it as soon as possible. Let's look at what we'll be covering today. We'll check out what Command Center does, how it fits into your business scenario. We'll also look through each of its vital components before we get into defining and implementing a journey. In our recent enhancement of Command Center, we've clubbed it with signals. So we'll check out how those kind of triggers work. We'll also check how you can view your reports and insights at the end of our session. A few things that spring to mind when it comes to Command Center is that, simply put, Command Center is an advanced set of workflows. Take your process of bringing in leads. Let's say you have a handful of workflows in place for each of your lead nurturing processes. Perhaps you have one for email workflows for a section of your leads, say another for lead assignment, among others, and associated actions for each of these workflows. Yes, seemingly it's effective, but without an overall picture of all these workflows together, it gets increasingly difficult to ensure just how effective your lead nurturing process is. It doesn't easily let you pinpoint where and why some leads fall through or areas that require some patching up. Now, Command Center brings all these workflows under one roof, under one view. It lets you create all your workflows across any module you need and provides a one-stop avenue for you to manage your customer's journey from start to finish. Next, the fact that it can replicate or develop a carbon copy of your business process online. Now, we are talking about implementing everything to the finest T. From automating lead conversion from one division to another to triggering an email for a call made at a minor level, Command Center has got you covered. Zoho CRM has enabled automation in several aspects and it's been exceedingly effective. Command Center employs automation, but it does it on a module-to-module level. This means that a single Command Center journey lets you start from lead creation to deal closure to purchase order and whatnot. That is, a single journey can carry the entirety of your business process, however complex. In our previous webinars, we have discussed Command Center for a loan process, for supply management, and a couple of other use cases. Quite a few use cases are available in our knowledge base for other industries. We have Command Center for use cases for retail, for car insurance, telecommunication, and we'll keep on adding to them. I'm just going to send you a link to access these other use cases on the chat interface. As we have quite a few customers today from the real estate domain, we'll take a real estate business process as our scenario. Of course, not all of you must be in the real estate domain, but the concept works just about for any other business. We'll detail every step during the demonstration so you can follow, keeping your business structure in mind. So let's imagine that we have a small to medium real estate venture. We have about 10 to 20 real estate agents trying to close houses on the market. Just like any other business, real estate is just as thorough, with an intricate business process in place. And although we've got all our CRM features set up to ensure each step is followed through, it does get confusing at times. What we really need is a central hub to monitor the smooth flow of the entire machine, and that's exactly what CommandCenter is. Take our advanced set of workflows, our blueprints, and that maintains sales process, and then some, and then we've got our CommandCenter. The most unique quality of CommandCenter is its pan module capability, as we said earlier, that monitors your business model across multiple modules. It empowers you to link all your teams together and ensure the process flows uninterrupted. It also lets you monitor each stage closely. It lets you spot loopholes and derive reports on what works best for your business. Now let's look at the business process we have in place. It starts with creating leads, and then it's qualification, negotiation till the seller finalizes their listing, creation of a deal, then the approval processes, creation of quotes, and back and forth negotiation between the buyer and seller parties until a consensus is reached, and then it goes into buyer approval. Once this is done, the property moves into escrow and final negotiations, creation and approval of invoices, and finally moves into the loan process. You can always add more components to your real estate journey based on how your business is set. Now let's move on to our components of CommandCenter. States. States are simply put as stages of your business process. For example, when the property is in escrow, that's a state. And when it moves into a stage of closing procedures, that's another state. Which brings us to transitions. Transitions make the movement of any record from one state to the other. In this case, moving out of escrow is a transition. Triggers are actions that prompt our transitions into movement. For example, when an agent who owns a particular deal approves or sanctions an action, this can be used as a trigger for a transition to the next state. Overall, each stage plays a crucial role in propelling the application to subsequent stages and finally completing the process. So an online replica of this process should be able to capture details like stages, where there's a lag, stalling, or such. If a stage is skipped, the amount of time spent at one stage and more. Now let's move on to the main demo part of our webinar and let's get this journey going. First, we create our journey. We add our journey name and a description. If we have already been creating blueprints before, this is going to be straightforward, but let's walk through it. Let's start by creating a state. Adding our state name. Our state name here is lead created, so let's put that in. Choosing our module as leads. Now that our state is created, let's look at the available actions we have. Available instant actions are automating field updates, email notifications, creating tasks, webhooks, functions, creating or adding tags, Slack, or click notifications. For schedule actions, you can set a particular action to occur after a record is in a certain state for a certain number of days, hours, or minutes. Under scheduled actions, we have all the earlier ones except for adding and removal of tasks and Slack or Click notifications. These same actions are available under recurring actions as well. If you want an activity to occur repeatedly at regular intervals, you can set a recurring action. For example, you can send reminder emails every day for a lead to sign up for an open house, send notification to the seller after the buyer confirms booking, or send email alerts. Now let's move on to creating our transition. To create transition, simply click on the plus icon here, and let's start defining by filling in our transition name and choose our trigger. Now there are a whole bunch of triggers that you can choose, and here we are choosing it for our standard layout, but there are a whole bunch of other triggers that you can use as well. Uh, all right, let me just go back to my presentation and I'll show you the other kinds of triggers we have. You have triggers for submission of web form, for creation of record, edit of record, on receiving an API call. If you want to invoke any transition from a third-party application, you can select this option and copy the API URL provided by us. Also, you can mention the parameters that could be passed along with each API call. You get to select a maximum of 6 parameters here. Based on the approval of a record, a transition is triggered if a record is approved based on a prior approval process, and also based on rejection of a record, where a transition occurs only if a record is rejected. Let's go back to our demo and add a few more states and transitions to our journey. Adding my next state. For contact creation in my contacts module, my trigger for when the lead is pre-qualified. I'm choosing conversion of lead. I'm adding an instant action here. Sorry, I'm adding a condition here. Lead status is pre-qualified. Our next state. Here we are choosing our triggers for when the lead is not qualified for it to be lost. which is choosing our deal approval state. And we've added our instant action. Here our deal is qualified and we are choosing our triggers based on its approval. So when the quote approval doesn't go through, the deal is lost, and we'll add a transition for quote rejected. Adding a condition for when the quote gets rejected. After the quote is approved, we move on to sales order creation. After the negotiation stage. or instant action is added. And during the negotiation, if the buyer rejects the offer, the deal is lost. Adding a status condition for cancelled and done. If the sales order goes through, we move on to creating invoices, and we define our transition for when the buyer approves. Once invoice is created, it moves into the loan sanctioning stage. Now, if our invoice is not approved, it will go back to deal lost. So let's define that transition as well. Choosing our action, condition, status cancelled. Now you can either create a deadline for your journey if you want to or not. If you want records to be in a particular state only for a specific period, you can, and after the deadline, you can make the record to be escalated or moved to another state. And that's our command center journey, y'all. Like I said earlier, you can always keep adding more states and transitions to your command center particular journey, depending on how elaborate your business process is. It basically follows the same flow, so do try it out. Now, when you enable command center will be available as a separate module in your CRM. All the records available in that particular journey. It's instant ID. It also shows you your current state and the command center start time. Okay. So command center opened up to our Zoho users about 3 months ago. However, a couple of weeks ago, a new enhancement was made. In addition to pre-existing record triggers, we now also have signals for triggers in Command Center. Let's go back to our presentation and take a look at the new signal triggers available. Okay, so these are the new signal triggers in Command Center that help us achieve transitions out of the box. For our email integration in Zoho CRM trigger, we can trigger the transition of a state when an email is sent, when it's opened, clicked, bounced, opened or not opened, replied to or not replied to, unsubscribed, and among other things. Which means that after a few reminders, you can trigger the lead to go back to initial contact or just simply mark them as uninterested. We have similar triggers for calls. You can trigger a transition when receiving an incoming call, an outgoing call is left unattended, or a scheduled call goes overdue. We also have available triggers for various actions and integrations, including Sales IQ, Desk, Survey, Backstage, Webinar, and campaigns, and custom signals as well. Let's go back to our journey and see where we can access these signal-based triggers. So we're just going to delete this transition and create a new one. So we're choosing our trigger here to be based on so yeah, you can see that all the signal triggers are listed here. So we are choosing for when we receive an incoming email as a trigger for conversion of a lead, for creation of a lead. We can also add instant actions to add tags or add tasks based on this. Here we are adding a follow-up task. And saving and associating. So there you have it. Apart from this, as we mentioned earlier, we do have numerous new signal triggers so to explore. All right. So now let's move on and see how we can edit, reorder, deactivate, or delete our journeys. Command Center lets you create up to 5 versions of each journey, but at any time only one of these can be active. Deactivating a process is fairly easy. You simply use the toggle buttons that are available. Or you can use this deactivate button here. Now deleting a journey can be done by using this trash icon over here. But please keep in mind that all the records currently in that process will be exited once you decide to delete your journey. Also, the history of records in that particular journey will be permanently deleted and all the actions associated with the journey will be stalled. Alright, so let's go back to our presentation and look at the kind of reports that we have available. So now that our command center process is in place, let's look at creating reports for our process. There are 4 reports available for our processes in command center. The first is statewise segregation, average time taken in each state, our overall report, and our custom reports. Let's look at the first 3 kinds of reports first. You can access your reports from you have a view reports option right here. When you click on it, all 3 of these kind of pre-existing reports will be available. As you can see, your state-wise segregation report shows the number of records that are available in each state. Our second is our average time reports that show the amount of time a record spends in one state. You can figure out delays, pinpoint the bottleneck states, identify the states that have maximum stagnation, and note the time taken for a transition. Thirdly, our overall report. Our overall report that gives a pictorial representation of the entire process with the record count shown in each state and transition. We recently came up with custom reports as well. So let's go see how we can create a customized report. Simply go to your reports module and click on create new report, and under the module selected, all your created journeys will be visible. Simply select the journey you wish to create a custom report for, select your related modules, and you go about building your custom report just as you do for any other module. Finally, let's look at how our command center did. Let's look at how the records have passed through each state and how it's visible. I'm going to our leads module. And creating a lead. Adding lead details, email ID. All right. Now that your lead is created, when you take a look at the lead here, it shows the command center state that it is in. And when you click on this icon over here, it shows a more branched out view from start to the creation and its next state. It also shows the next action over here and its date. So now I'm going to change my lead status to show how it moves through our journey. Our updated lead. Now that we have updated that field, it will automatically convert it into a contact and deals as assigned in our command center journey. And there you have it. It's in contact creation and deal approval. And as our record progresses through the different stages of the journey, it will keep moving. We're approving this record now. Our next state is quote approval. So let's go ahead and start creating a quote here. And save our quote. Editing our quote stage to negotiation. By clicking on the timeline view on your left top corner, it gives you a history um, of the record moving through its different states. There we go. So as you can see, our quote has moved in, and to sales order creation. Let's move on to the next state. We're changing the status to approved, and our current state has transitioned to loan sanctioned. And let's check it out. And this marks the end of the journey. It's visibly shown as closed one, which is the end of our command center journey. So that's how it works. Like I said earlier, you can always add more, you can branch out and add more states and transitions according to your business process. Now let's, when you go to your command center module, which shows the lists of journeys that you have, you'll notice this chat interface right at the bottom that allows you to chat with our experts specific to command center queries. So if you have any questions while setting up your command center, feel free to pop in there and respond. So thank you everyone for joining our session.